Welcome everyone to the Past Summit Speaker Idol. Today's obviously Thursday, so our second set of contestants are today. My name is Denny Cherry. I'll be your host today from the principal consultant at Denny Cherry and Associates Consulting. My clicker is apparently misbehaving again today, so don't forget to turn off your cell phones. I've already quieted mine, much to my wife's dismay. I won't be calling her back. Let's dive right into the format of what today looks like. So each presenter is going to get 5 minutes to talk here at Speaker Idol. They're going to present whatever they want, whatever format they want to talk about, as long as they stand on the stage and talk for 5 minutes. Once they're done talking, our wonderful panel of judges down here will go ahead and tell them what they thought of their presentation, and they're looking only at presentation style. So I got a question last night, are we looking for technical expertise in the topic? Hopefully not. In my opinion, what I've always told people is you can present anything you want. We had a great presentation yesterday about Magic the Gathering. That was an awesome session where I learned an awful lot because I've never played Magic in my life. So the sessions don't have to be about SQL Server. It's all about presenting something you're interested in so that you can show off your skills about presenting to the judges. You wouldn't have gotten this far. You wouldn't be up here if you didn't know what you were talking about, because you have to go to a bunch of SQL Saturdays. Go ahead, Mark. You clearly have something to say. Maybe. It's on. Go ahead. The wonderful sound man said it's working. Don't touch the switch. Just talk.
Okay. The proviso is if you're up there and you speak about something that we know more about and you make a glaring mistake, we will probably call you out on it.
That's fair enough. So don't be wrong, but you probably know what you're talking about if you're up here already, because we only have some pretty experienced folks up here already that are doing this presentation. So, Kendra's got to take a selfie. So once all 4 of our contestants have gone, once they've all gotten their feedback, our judges will go ahead and deliberate. They will pick a winner and a runner-up. When Friday afternoon rolls around, so tomorrow afternoon, all 3 of the winners will come up here. We'll also have one of our wildcard winners come up here and give the presentations again. They can either give the same presentation as before, or they can give a brand new presentation. It is totally up to them, and then we'll go through the exact same process. The only difference being the finalists, or the winner of that presentation, will go on to be a presenter at the summit next year, and be our winner for the entire event. So, standard attribution, all the images I have are from clip art. I have no idea where they actually came from. I don't care. If you have a problem, call Microsoft. Their lawyers are probably better than yours. So, the prize for this at the end, like I said, is a session at the 2019 Path Summit. So along with that, you obviously are going to get 12 glorious months to panic about what you're going to present about, because you're going to probably change your session 2,000 times between now and then. You'll need to know what you're presenting about the same time as they announce the schedule, because that's when I think PASS actually cares. Until then, you can change it up as much as you want. So obviously, you also get bragging rights because you did beat 11 of your closest friends, and I'm assuming they're all your friends and not your enemies at that point. So our judges today, we've got Mark Sims from Microsoft. We've got Joey Diatoni from Denny Cherry and Associates. We've got Kendra Little at Redgate. We've got Alan Hurt from SQL HA. So our speakers today are going to be Leslie Andrews, Janusz Wojcicki. Was I close? Very close. Okay, I'll take close. Michael Johnson and Paresh Motwala. Was I close? Was I close? Almost. I did better yesterday. So our first contestant is Leslie Andrews. So Leslie, you want to come on up? Oh, you're already mic'd. Excellent.
Hi.
So Leslie has a Bachelor of Business from the University of New Mexico. She works for the city of Albuquerque as a database architect, and she's been mucking around with the SQL Server stuff for about 20 years now, with various experience in the judiciary, healthcare, and electrical supply. Go ahead and switch over.
Oh, yeah, no,
It's all you.
Yay. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me for a Perfect 10, the data model. Today, we are going to compare a third normal form model and a star schema and learn when you would choose one over the other. My goal is for you to leave here today with the ability to look at the databases that you work with and determine if the person who designed them had a clue. So, we all know that when it comes to model, the perfect 10 is the pinnacle. They have the perfectly done hair and the curves and the smile. And so if we're lucky, one day we might get to meet a supermodel like Flynn, the Bichon Frise, winner of the 2018 Westminster Best in Show. Unfortunately, the model most of us get to work with is like Zsa Zsa, winner of the Dogliest Dog Contest for 2018 with a face that really only a mother could love. So, depending on the job, you need a different type of model. You're never going to need a Zsa Zsa model. You're always looking for a perfect 10. So, if you're going to be creating a third normal form model, that was what you would be using for a transactional system. One that would be doing point of sale or accounting or any of the operational work of the business. It does lots of CRUDs, creates, updates, reads, and deletes, and it needs to be very fast for the user interface to be able to interact with it. If you're going to be working on a dimensional or an analysis project, you would want to use a star schema. Its purpose is to report the measurements of the business. It supports cube analysis, which allows you to do the slicing and the dicing of the data, and fast to provide the details of the big picture view that you're providing. So now that we would know when we would use each of the models, we have to make sure we know how to create them correctly. When people say third normal form, what does that mean? It means that the data has been reviewed and restructured to meet the rules of normalization. And your goal is to get to what's called the third normal form. Here is a perfect 10 model for a basic questionnaire. It has primary keys in each of the tables. It has foreign keys to relate the data to each other. You can add unlimited number of questionnaires, questions, and answers. You can change the answers to a question. There's no duplicated data. All the attributes in each table are all about the key, so help me Cobb. It is pretty straightforward, not too complicated, and scalable. Unlike the Zsa Zsa questionnaire database. This is a reverse engineered database of a production system that supported collecting event information about nursing home accidents. These two long tables right here are actually one questionnaire. It is so long because they couldn't fit all of the fields into one table. So we have facility events and facility events 2. Anytime you need a second table to hold all of your fields, you probably are looking at a Zsa Zsa database. In this section, there are 11 different tables for 11 child questionnaires. Each questionnaire is its own table. If you want to create a new questionnaire, you have to create a new table. If you want to add a question to a questionnaire, you have to add a field to that table. Every change requires a database modification because it's not normalized and it is not scalable. Here's an example of what I like to call committing spreadsheet. If you have field names with numbers after them, you have a Zsa Zsa database. So now let's talk about the star schema. A star schema separates the facts of your business into measurable, quantifiable data, and it allows you to have the dimension attributes that tell you all about the fact that you're looking at. So here's a perfect 10 star schema. We have a single fact table with the sales information and keys to all of the dimensions that go around it. The product table has been denormalized, so the category description and the subcategory description are in the same table. And that's not the way it would be in a third normal form. Third normal form, you would probably have to do at least 3 joins to get to the description field of the subcategory. Whereas in a dimensional model, you're only a single join away from any piece of information you might be interested in. So now I know you're wondering, is there a Zsa Zsa of star schemas? No. What usually ends up happening is somebody uses a third normal form model, and it is slow to do the aggregates that the star schema is designed to optimize. So while Zsa and Vlyn are both really perfect in their own ways, when it comes to data models, you really do have to pick the right one. If you're building a transactional system, you want your model to be a third normal form. And if you're building an analysis system, use a star schema. Thank you very much for coming today.
So spot on timing. Thank you for that. Pretty much nailed that. You had me going on the models thing. Well done. The twist with the dogs was great. I felt there was almost 2 talks in there. One really good one on how to completely bork a third normal form model, and one on how to do the same thing with star schema.
Yes.
And I almost felt like there were 2 really good stories, kind of like fighting it out.
So I had used to thought that I had seen the worst data model that I had ever seen. We should compare notes sometime. I thought your stage presence was good. I like the use of humor. I really like the way you use the like, normally we'd yell at you for the fonts not being big enough in that data model, but the way you zoomed in showed like how disgusting it was on a large scale, and then zoomed in and showed how gross it was on a detailed level.
Yes,
I thought that was quite excellent.
Yes,
Thanks for speaking for us today.
absolutely.
I really enjoyed that.
Thanks.
I loved, and you kept the audience laughing and engaged the whole time. I loved the model theme. I loved the way you set it up and introduced it, and then had the dogs be the models. And you had great detail keeping the picture of, okay, this is the ugly dog on it. They were the pictures of the ugly dog were a little small, and they kind of moved. Like it was top left, and then it was bottom right. I struggle with this myself. I'd make them a little bigger and kind of put them in front of the ugliness in the background, just so it's just sort of natural, like, oh yeah, that's the ugly dog, and it's a little easier to see there. You have really, your smile is engaging. You had great eye contact around the room. I think your movements got a little smaller throughout the talk. So you could kind of keep some of the bigger movements, or maybe introduce some controlled movement across the stage would be the next step.
Okay.
But really good delivery, and I was captured throughout. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, I'd echo that you did a good job, had good presence. Probably the things I would criticize more in the deck in terms of things like the mixed use of fonts. Like you went from like small fonts to bigger fonts, like, and just be a little more consistent, because one of the reasons that conferences have templates is that good, bad, or indifferent, it's consistent in how things are used. Or if you have one for your company or whatever, like that kind of stuff. So going from the beginning on your agenda study, you had like the really small font at the bottom, and then use some bigger ones. Just trying to be a little more consistent with that.
Sure.
I like the humor, and I really, as somebody who's more of an infrastructure guy, and I've dealt with this stuff on some level, it's a pretty good explanation of, say, third normal form versus star schema, but I know what they are, but like if you're trying to explain certain things, you could have spent even just a couple seconds saying, because you talked about primary key, foreign key, just say that's just like a parent-child relationship. Like just, somebody may not know what that is, you just made an assumption. And the other thing is consistent use of highlighting. So on those, when you dug down, you had the highlighted, but on the sort of perfect 10 one, when you talked about, oh, this is the I had an example, I forget words, but you were saying how like, again, like primary foreign keys, here's your parent table and stuff like that. You didn't have highlights on that
Right.
stuff.
Okay.
So you might just like when you call something out, just have a little, even if it's just a laser pointer, just showing people what it is.
Right.
So because not everybody's going to see, oh, that's the sales table, you know, that kind of stuff. But overall,
I'd
really.
planned on doing that, but I didn't.
No. Look, it happens to all of us. We all have the best of intentions in our
Absolutely.
decks. But it was a really, really great presentation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, mouse down. We have to mic you. You have to be professional. So, yeah, go ahead and plug in. No. Mouse case. it's hiding. So our next presenter is Janice. So he's a cloud solution architect based in the UK in London. Specializes in real-time trading platforms, otherwise known as really, really fast data. He's been working as a DBA for about 10 years now, and 5 years as an Azure solution architect.
Thank you very much, Denny, and hello, everybody. Quick question. Have you noticed that we've been bombarded with AI-enabled, smart, and intelligent tools, features, databases, and even cloud? Well, I have, and I decided to find out what does it mean in practical terms. And in this short session, I'm going to explain what is intelligence and AI, provide a scoring framework, evaluate some of intelligent features, and finally look at future trends. Let's start from intelligence, which is the ability to reason. It is the ability to gain high-quality insights and make good decisions. If we add automation to intelligence, we have artificial intelligence. So automatically gaining insights and making good automated decisions. In context which I'd like to mention Ion Stoica. He is professor at UC Berkeley, director of Rice Lab, and co-founder of Databricks. In his definition, good automated decision is first and foremost explainable. And this is very important. AI is here to help us. It's not going to replace us or kill us, but if we want to stay in control, we have to understand its decisions. We have to be able to explain them. Next, decisions have to be robust and handle unknown conditions. They should be executed as fast as possible, ideally in real time, which is very important in context of security. Decisions should be personalized, localized, and relevant for us. And finally, decisions should be based on the most recent data. And we can use this list of attributes as a very simple scoring framework, which means we can measure intelligence by looking at quality of decision it makes. These scores sum up to 10, and the closest to this perfect score was actually adaptive query processing with 9. Decisions are explainable, real-time, and personalized. Second place, integration with Azure Active Directory. That acts as stateful firewall. So when it finds out anomaly, it can automatically change authentication mode using conditional access. Next on my list, automatic plan correction, which is feature of automatic tuning family. So steep baseline requirements. Query has to run 15 times, and query store has to be in read-write mode. Another feature from automatic tuning family, create and drop index, limited to non-clustered row store indexes. Finally, intelligent insights. So high quality performance insights, but no automated decisions. We have to apply these recommendations ourselves. And finally, threat detection. Same case, high quality insights, no automated decisions. And let's group these features by platform. Let's plot them on timeline showing release date, and finally sum up their scores. Here it is. That's our intelligence tracker. So all features I mentioned are cloud first, most of them cloud only. In standalone edition, if we want to be on the same level of automation as in Azure SQL PaaS offering, we have to gain insights, make decisions ourselves. In the cloud, we have a choice, but here's a catch. If we want to use these AI-enabled features, we also have to be intelligent. And skills like critical thinking and fast learning are more important than ever. If you watched Satya Nadella's Envision keynote at Microsoft Ignite back in September, he was talking about tech intensity. So to innovate, we have to focus on fine balance between building and buying, between knowing it all and learning ad hoc. Let me stop right there. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Good job. So a couple things, and then I'll pass the mic on. At the very beginning, you sort of asked a question, but didn't really ask a question. You didn't solicit feedback from the audience. You sort of asked more of a rhetorical question.
It's supposed to be rhetorical.
But generally in the case of when you're in a talk, you're trying to sort of engage the audience more of a, like, especially if it's recorded, people kind of want that interaction. Just sort of be careful how it's, phrased. I liked your pacing. It was good. You were pretty even all throughout. Probably the thing I'd give you the most feedback on is the way your deck was sort of structured. You went all your colors, like you had the yellow background with the white text, and that very bright green with a black. Those can be very jarring colors. So I'd make sure that your colors are sort of more a little user-friendly in some cases. But overall, I like your pacing. The humor is good, like not going to replace us or kill us stuff. That was good. But yeah.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks for talking. Thanks. I enjoyed that. I feel like there's a narrative arc that we were missing a little bit in the talk that you could shape into it a little bit. More of a beginning, middle, end, or it could take a different trajectory. It's hard in 5 minutes to get more than beginning, middle, end in there, but I felt a little lost at times as to where are we going, where are we in the talk, and that. I liked at the beginning how when the audience laughed, you laughed along with them a little bit. I felt like that was natural and just a really good moment. You had some really good hand motions on relevant to us. There were some times when your hand motions were really well done with what you were saying, and I liked that a lot too. But yeah, and at the end I was kind of like, oh, are we done? So yeah, I think the shape of the talk and the narrative would be the biggest thing I would work on to build that. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I thought your delivery was really solid. I thought that was fantastic. I agree, like a little bit about what Kendra said about how delivery, or the storyline could have been a little bit tied together. I thought that was a lot of content for 5 minutes, because it was hard for you to give a good explanation of what each of those features did. But I got where you're going. I think that would be a really good, long session. The one other thing where you had the list, that build list on the screen, and you disappeared the previous values, don't do that. Keep them there so we can see what the value was before. You can highlight or put a box around it. And I thought the ending was a little bit abrupt as well, like Kendra said.
So since we're all apparently sharing a brain cell up here, for rhetorical questions, just make it really, really obvious it's rhetorical and answer it yourself. That way other folks aren't hanging going, should I put my hand up? I'm not sure. And I think the narrative arc, since you had a little bit of extra time, said, hey, we're going to do a little inventory of some of the new features that have come online in the SQL family lately that fall into the bucket of AI because they do non-deterministic things. Let's have a little walkthrough. Just to frame that a little bit, maybe even start with an inventory set. And make sure to always do the back of the room check with bad lighting on contrast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So our next contestant, is going to be Michael Johnson. So Michael is an independent BI consultant and trainer based out of Johannesburg, which is where we first met a few years ago. He's a business analytics virtual chapter co-lead. Making an awful lot of noise over here. And he's a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. Switch that. There you go.
Somebody has to be different, huh?
Yep. Thank you, sir.
I've always worked alone. I started my life off as a developer inside of a bank. I was the only IT guy. Then I switched to being an independent consultant, ultimately a trainer, which meant that I did not have much of a need for working in a team. So I've sort of ignored a lot of these development practices that go, yeah, they're good. They're good. They're good things to have, but I've just lacked a need. A couple of weeks ago, we had a pre-con by Alex Yates. He came and spoke about DevOps. And this was an exciting thing, so I thought I'd go along. And one of the recommendations he made was a book. So I went and downloaded this book, and it's called The Phoenix Project. Has anybody read The Phoenix Project? A couple of you? Not enough? It's about a third of you, a little bit less. So it's a fantastic book. It's actually it's an adaptation of a book called The Edge. And I've called that book the wrong one, which is essentially looks at a IT developer who is promoted to management, and he has to take control of his industry, of his business, and there's a failing project. Now, as I said, I don't have the needs that he does in this larger sort of development process, but what I do have, there are things that I've noticed that I can build into my daily life. So this is what I want to tell you about. But just before I do that, the Phoenix focuses on three larger aspects. The first of these is flow, and this is how do we take requirements from business and how do we move this into production. And obviously a good flow is when we can move these features quickly. The second of these is feedback. So feedback is how long and how well can we take processes from our testing systems or our product managers or our customers and build those back into our projects. And the final thing was improve. And improve is how do we improve our systems with each cycle so that any of the bugs that we have in our systems are eradicated. Now, as I said, I'm not going to bring all of these into my business. I have a lot of customers. Sometimes I only visit them once a month. I actually don't have enough time to sort of build a lot of these processes. But what I can do is fix myself. So one of the things I can do to fix myself is this idea of working in smaller batches. And this comes from the Agile Manifesto, where what we want to do is we want to take a large chunk of work, we want to break it down. You've all heard the saying of how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, exactly that. So that's what we want to do with work, but there's also another element to that, and I was really good at breaking the work down. But what I did is I did all of these little things, and then I left them all in my testing environment. And then at the end of the month, I shipped them. But by the time I shipped them, I'd kind of forgotten what the first one or two things were. So part of what a DevOps as a practice is trying to do is saying, take that smallest unit of work that you can do and push it right through into production. So don't leave it festering in some other location. The second thing I'm looking at doing is automating. Okay, so automating is removing a lot of those manual practices. I don't know how many of you do this, but I do this a lot. Right-click deploy. Okay, this is how that's how I roll. Well, that's how I used to roll. That's how I used to roll. I'm trying to get better. Okay, but I'm sure this is something that a lot of us are doing. And at the moment, I'm doing PowerShell. I know there are better tools out there. So it's also, PowerShell is a nice tool to learn. I've got my SSIs, my reporting services in there. I'm still a bit nervous about my database. The database project's a little bit more confusing. But I'm trying to get there, okay? And then the final thing is improve. Now, improve is what we're saying is that with each iteration, what we want to do is fix something in that process. And to be honest, right now, a lot of that is building these automations, okay? But as I get further, what I'd like to do is start building unit tests. It's one of the things I've kind of been skimming for sessions around this conference is how do I unit test BI? I'm BI, if you didn't know. How do I unit test a cube? How do I do the integration testing? So this is a lot of learning that I'm trying to learn. So it's a journey. But these are kind of three things that I think I can build into my product right now. So what do I think you can do? Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is buy that book. $16 on Amazon right now, okay? And it's a bargain. I've never read a book that fast, okay? It's been years since I've read. I finished that book in 2 days, okay? Which, by my standards, is pretty good. Secondly, managing your workflow. The Phoenix Project speaks a lot about trying to reduce WIP, and WIP is that amount of work that we have in actual production right now. And there's a lot of cool techniques for this. You'll hear Kanban, you'll hear all of these technologies. And we I've kind of focused on the Kanban approach. I found that works well for me. Okay? And then finally, we want to automate one thing each cycle. So find something in your cycle. The thing that hurts the most, fix that. All right. Thank you.
All right, our friendly neighborhood judges.
Well, at least one of those nouns is true. So thank you for, loved the starting off with a personal narrative and kind of really bringing it home. I just felt that the personal narrative then the flow into Phoenix was like a little bit of a gap missing in terms of, hey, here's the things that I work on and here's how I'm thinking about applying. Watch your glottal stops. It's really easy to...
So can you repeat that?
Yeah, watch your glottal stops.
Okay.
It's easy to automatically fill in the space while you're thinking, and the cleanest thing is just to say nothing. And it's unless you record yourself and like play back a presentation, you don't even notice them because the brain blanks them out. So just watch those, and make sure to keep maintaining eye contact with the audience and not the floor.
Yeah, I thought your delivery was good. The slides were pretty. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more tied together narrative early. You don't necessarily need an agenda slide or anything like that, but there is the notion of telling us what you're going to tell us. Your use of motion was a little bit too much. You were kind of almost pacing back and forth across the stage, and that I think kind of led to the eye contact thing Mark was talking about. I like the automating and improve notion. But I really would have liked a better idea of the cohesive theme of your talk and what you were aiming for.
Hey, thanks for talking, and thanks for talking about DevOps, a subject which I really, really like hearing about. I also enjoy the book, The Phoenix Project, and I actually think for 5 minutes for this, the end when you got to the work in progress, limiting the amount of work, I was kind of like, wait, but does that really work if you're just one person? And I think you could actually do the 5 minutes just on that in context of if I'm not part of a factory process or a large software team, what does that mean and how does it help? And I think that could kind of sharpen the story a little bit and keep it from being kind of too much for 5 minutes because you covered a whole lot in 5 minutes there, which isn't necessarily bad, but I think it could kind of make it more powerful to zoom in on that. I loved how you reacted to the audience and incorporated it into the talk when someone in the front row kind of had a comment and you brought it in and made it lively. And I thought that was really, really positive. I agree with Joey a little bit about controlling the movement. I think that'll really...
I'm a prowler, yes.
Yeah, and one thing that I think can help with prowling, I really like moving around the stage too, and I probably do it a little too much myself. Identifying some stations where you kind of stand at for a little bit and then move back can kind of, if you even pick out ahead of time, okay, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be there, that can help control it a little bit. Great job, really enjoyed it, thank you.
Pretty much agree with everybody, what everybody said, so I'm just going to add one or two things here. The one thing that sometimes it points, not that I struggled with because I could hear you, but more, I guess, volume. And some of that could be microphone, but some of it could just be placement of, like your volume was a little bit low at times. So again, in a very big room, that might not come across. So just watch, like your tone, I guess, more than anything. I didn't see any, again, just picture attributes of where you got your pictures from. So
it's in the slide deck. It's just not relevant here, so I didn't really show it.
No, that's fine. As long as they're somewhere, but just it's one of those things. Didn't notice them, so they're there. Cool. Again, I did actually like the same thing with the audience reaction to the right-click thing. Stuff like that is really what makes a difference in a lot of presentations. Of you can choose to ignore it, or you can kind of go with it and incorporate it. And you did the thing that not a lot of people would have done, which is, all right, I'm going to react to it, and just if it gets a rise, great. If not, you basically you acknowledged it in a way that was just fine. But overall, pretty good job.
Cool. Thanks.
So our next contestant is Paresh. So he's a DBA and BI manager from Boston, Massachusetts. He leads the past DBA virtual chapter and the Northeast SQL Server user group. Also runs, New England SQL Server user group, sorry. He runs the Boston BI user group as well. He runs the past professional development virtual chapter, which I'm pretty sure I've seen. He organizes, speaks, and volunteers at a countless number of SQL and Azure events and user groups. And he mentors local data professionals and children around the globe as well. So I'm going to reach over you when you're all set.
Yes, sir.
And just switch the slides, your computer on. There you go.
He didn't attach it, I believe. So.
Oh,
Yeah, -5 marks for you.
there you go.
So how's this mic going? Good? Everybody there? Okay, cool. Come on, I know it's the last speaker of the day. You all want to go home. Let me not stop you, okay? So, hi everyone. My name is Paresh Motiwala. And as he said, I'm from New England. Go Patriots, go Sox. And today we'll be talking about the art of getting and nailing interviews. How many of you have been through an interview process in the last year and felt it was like zha? Right? See, not many, but the reason is that we are so kind of comfortable in the jobs that we do, we don't want to look out. So the idea is to actually inculcate into you some sort of urgency about going for interviews, and why, how, we will talk about it soon. So that's my family, and that's a group of students. I actually teach public speaking, so he's recording it too. So my students will know how Uncle Paresh did. So cool. So that's my contact information for you. And today's agenda, right? So what we are going to do is, do we have a mic clicker? Never mind. So we'll get to a point how to get an interview, right? One of the first and the most important thing we struggle is how to get an interview. We'll talk about how to prepare for the interview. Oh wait, now that we are in the interview, how do we act during the interview? And what do we do after the interview, right? 4 things. This is actually a 75-minute talk. I'm condensing it to 4 minutes and 45 seconds, so please bear with me. So let's go. How do you get to an interview? Just a quick show of hands. Anybody? Yes, ma'am. Beautiful. So, no, okay, so the question was, how do you get to an interview, right? Not, or a stage where you get an interview, okay. So update your resumes regularly. Yeah, that's very crucial, because what happens is that if you don't do this regularly, you will miss out some important points of your resume. Never stop looking. I know if my boss is looking, possibly I'll have to rewrite my resume, but definitely never, ever stop looking. Network and volunteer. Like networking, as today all of you are here, I'm sure you're sitting next to somebody who you know so well, right? Don't do that. That's a chronic error. Volunteer with your sports team, your children's sports team, your church, or your place of worship, or pass, right? You will know that your next job is most likely coming from the network you built. So definitely keep networking and volunteering. Social media, make sure you polish off your social media, okay? It gets pretty ugly pretty quick if you have all the anti-establishment rules or bad pictures, not such humorous posts. You want to take them all down before you start looking for a job. Start speaking like what we do. I mean, I speak at about 150 events already so far, and I would love to continue doing that. I have made some of the best friends of my life during that. Blog. Awesome way, because blogging has an archive value. Speaking doesn't always have one. So you really want to do is blog. People can actually print it, do whatever, but they can't do too much with your speeches. So preparing for the interview. KYFS. Anybody know what it is? Oh, man, this is heartbreaking. Know your frickin' subject, right? So I cannot tell you this enough number of times, right? Because you want to go there and you want to apply for a DBA position, and oh yeah, what? DBA, it stands for don't bother to ask. So know your resume and make sure that it kind of tallies with what you have for your job description. Research your interviewer, right? You will know how quickly the ice is broken if you know a little bit about your interviewer, right? hey, I think I know you are Kendra Little's friend, right? Oh my God, how do you know Kendra? Oh yeah, she's my best friend. I mean, she's not going to verify with Kendra, right? Cool, awesome. So research the company and research the industry. How do you research a company? Anybody? Quick guess? Google, go to their website. Chances are they have posted some of the best achievements they have had in the past 1 or 2 years. You want to be ready with that. So why my company? What's an exit line? You have to be prepared. Sorry, that was a rhetorical question. You have to be prepared as to why you are looking and why you want to leave the previous job, okay? That could actually make or break your job interview. Now that you are in the interview, make sure you get rid of your garlic breath. It's not fun, I tell you, especially because you are in an interview room which is possibly smaller than the size of my bathroom, and you don't really want to be there with a garlic breath or a fish breath, right? Okay, diet, definitely, and make sure that the proverbial parsley is not stuck in your teeth. Dress code, oh well, these dress codes are not allowed. Arrive early, okay, socialize, warm handshakes, exchange pleasantries, don't talk about some parties and politics, and posture, sit confidently, don't slouch. That is so crucial. I cannot tell you this enough number of times. Do not slouch in an interview. Do not sit like you're sitting in a bar. Be very professional about how you sit and approach them. Finally, after the interview, maintain records. If you need, I have a spreadsheet that I maintain of any jobs. It serves 2 purposes. Number 1, it helps you claim unemployment too. So follow up, most crucial. Conclusion, we went through how do you get an interview, how do you prepare for an interview, what do you do during the interview, and what do you do after an interview. Okay, thank you, everyone. And my contact information is here. So, again.
Judges? Maybe. He's
All right. I didn't turn it off.
Yeah.
It says dead battery.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Oh my God. This is, I think, God's way of saying, Paresh, you didn't do too well. This is the time you want to sneak out of the room, right?
Thank you.
But thank you guys for.
Fell over. All right.
Oh, okay. Always on.
Fell over. Okay. So good job. You did go over time. You're about 45 seconds over.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's not good. I practiced this, sorry.
Well, so I think some of that was, like, for example, you had the stuff about you in the beginning. Denny kind of takes care of that. So again, if you get chosen for the rounds, the final round, you can probably trim up some of your slides and sort of make them a little more compact. I noticed that you were, now I do the same thing. I actually don't use, I buck the trend and I don't have like a remote presenter, but I also do a lot of live demos generally where I type but you had a lot of motion slides where you had to keep hitting spacebar. If it's just stuff like that, you could just have it show up because you were looking down and pressing the space bar. So if you're gonna have a lot of motion slides, either have a clicker or just have it all present, or occasionally, you know, the other thing, and I've been guilty of this too, is that it's really hard to know that you normally do a talk, say in 75 or 100 minutes or whatever, and condense it down to 5 minutes. Just don't tell people that. Because then people are like, well, what's he leaving out? Like, is he leaving out some important information? Or say, you know, I could talk more on this, but I distill this down to the most important parts. Like, make a positive out of a negative, if you will.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
You had great humor. I think your audience interaction was great.
Thank you.
You know, stuff like, you know, your frickin' subject. Like, stuff like that, like, really is good for audience interaction. But overall, good job.
Cool. Thank you.
I'm speaking into a very tiny microphone that's supposed to, I feel like I'm drinking out of a tiny teacup. Thank you for speaking. I think you have a great strength in terms of your vocal intonation. especially when you're not rushed. You have just this wonderful storytelling voice, and I just want to listen and listen and listen. And I think that really, like, simplifying, like Alan said, would really unleash that for this talk and just make it just a hugely enjoyable talk. So something like either highlights, or you could do anti-patterns, or, you know, biggest proactive patterns, and just select out of there, simplify. And I think with your audience interaction, you might even, when you're practicing, want to target your time for like 3 minutes, so that you can, when you get a smart comment from the audience, you can really enjoy it and lean into it, because I think you'd be really good at that.
Absolutely.
That's my feedback.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Blame
I
it on
agree.
Monica, though.
I agree with a lot of what Kendra and Alan said. I think your I was getting there. Let me finish, Sims. I think you wasted a lot of real estate in the slide deck and time by doing all that introductory stuff. It's a 5-minute talk. You just don't have the time. But the tone change was fantastic. I thought you dealt well with Monica's sarcastic remark. I thought that was a real...
For once, it wasn't Monica.
Now the official record.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Amy.
Okay.
I thought that was a good tip on researching the interviewer, and it was just really long. But I think you could have gotten all the content you had in 5 minutes.
So the great thing about audience participation is they participate. The bad thing is they participate. So depending on the size of the audience, so if you're more than 600 to 800 people, really you can't do anything more than rhetorical questions anyway. For something like this where it's small enough that people can shout out, 2 things. If you're going to ask for audience participation, plan for that they both engage in unexpected ways and they don't. So you pack a little bit of extra content that either becomes the filler if everyone ignores you, or basically you dump if you get really tight engagement with the audience. Cool. The other thing is, if you ask open-ended questions, you're going to get open-ended responses. So just be ready to kind of roll with that one, which I think you did a good job of. And so we'll have to plant a few seeds the next time for folks asking questions, so we get some really good heckling. But I really like the tips. And speaking as someone who was officially blacklisted from Microsoft interviewing for being non-technical, for those of you who know me realize how funny that is, those are really, really fantastic tips.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, judges, go away.
Yeah, Monica.
Hey, which of the judges had asked for a beer?
All right. So, who in the room is currently a speaker or is giving a talk of some length? You did today. About a quarter of the room, third of the room. So, of the people who have spoken, who's given a 5-minute talk? A few of them, maybe about half of the people that raise your hand, and John is yelling, "It's too hard." So I'm going to agree with John on that one. I personally hate the 5-minute presentations because they're too short, and I can't just do it a full arc like I want to do. So the people that competed today, people that are competing this whole week, thank you very much for coming and doing a 5-minute talk, because it is one of the hardest things you're ever going to do, is that really short 5-minute presentation, because they are just so hard to get the right set of information into that talk to really cover everything. So since how most of the audience is not actually currently a presenter, I'm curious what brought you down here today, given that we're in the bowels of hell in the basement of the CCC. You were told there would be snacks. Well, somebody lied to you, my dear. And it's clearly Monica's fault. So for the folks that aren't speakers, what brought you down here? Why did you want to come to the speaker idol to come see these folks give their talk? Something different to end the day? Okay. Cool. cool. A couple years ago, came to a bunch of sessions and had a lot of fun. Yes, sir. Pick up some tips from the speakers. All right, cool. Very good. I'm your boss. It doesn't count. Yeah, non-speakers, John. So listen to the judges and listen to them be judgy and tell everybody what they did wrong. Okay. So yeah, it's been interesting being down here, given that we're the last few years, other than last year, because I obviously wasn't here last year, that we were upstairs and in a fairly easy to find room, and I'm very happy to see this decent sized audience, given that we are down here, and I had to try kind of hard to find this room yesterday, because we are kind of in the middle of nowhere here. But I did think very interesting to see this many people actually make it all the way over here and all the way down here. So thank you all very much for coming. I do definitely appreciate it. So one of the things that I was talking about with Joey last night was how much better Speaker Rental has gotten over the last 5 or 6 years that we've done it. It was really good the first year, and it's gotten better every single year. The people have gotten better every single year that we've been doing this. And I'm really glad I'm not sitting down there and I get to stand up here and take all the credit and do none of the actual work, which I think Mark is quite proud of, if I do say so myself. Because having to judge and pick the winners of all these competitions and all these days is a really hard job for these guys. And in front of everybody, thank you all very much. And that said, who's the winner and who's the runner-up?
Oh, so our runner-up for today is Paresh, and our winner today is Leslie.
All right. So we will definitely see Leslie tomorrow afternoon, and we'll possibly see our runner-up tomorrow afternoon. We'll know tomorrow morning at about 12:30 whether or not you're going to want to have another presentation or another beer. So thank you all very much. Hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow morning at 11:15 a.m. and see you tomorrow.